Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, general ages, it is indeed week 11 in the National Football League. It has come and passed. And so, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have a lot of quarterback injuries to go over. We have playoff scenarios in the unsniffing season has come upon us, and the big boys are starting to separate. It is November football. It is when football matters more, not only in the NFL, but in college. So, my week 11 2023 NFL recap. In the money line, I ended up going 9-5. It puts me at 111 and 53 on the year. My losses, I picked Cincinnati against Baltimore, which was looking good until Joe Burrow got hurt, obviously, in that game, which we'll get to. I picked Pittsburgh over Cleveland. I picked the Chargers over the Packers. I knew not to trust the Chargers. I picked the Commanders over the Giants, and I also did pick Seattle over the Rams, which somehow Vegas got that line right on the nose. With the Rams, they're a 1-point underdog, but those were my 5 misses in the money line. My best bets, I ended up hitting Houston by a half a point against Arizona. They were favored by 4.5. Jacksonville demolishing Tennessee. Dallas demolishing Carolina. And then my 2 misses were again the Chargers, who Brandon Staley needs to be fired immediately. And then the Browns of their game-winning field goal over Pittsburgh. I was a half a point there from covering that Pittsburgh 2.5-point spread. I thought the numbers this week were pretty good for bets. Some of them I weren't sure about. Big favorite Miami did not cover. San Francisco, big favorite should not have covered, but they did. And the one I was most sure about was not only Dallas, but I thought Jacksonville would bounce back against Tennessee. I thought Jackson would bounce back against Tennessee, and then obviously Dallas against Carolina. But without further ado, Baltimore, they beat Cincinnati 34-20. They really took it to Jake Browning in the second half after Joe Burrow went out. And Cincinnati, they have not won a division game yet. They're 0-3. They have 2 games against Pittsburgh, one coming up this weekend, and then another one the last game of the season against Cleveland. But they're 5-5, and without Joe Burrow, they're not going to run the table, which is essentially what they would need to do, in my opinion, to have a legitimate shot at maybe not only the division but the wild card, pretty much. In a stacked AFC. So I think Cincinnati's season, for all intents and purposes, is over. I don't think that Jake Browning is going to lead them to even, 8 or 9 wins. I think they need to start looking at, hey, can we get a higher draft pick? Jamar Chase, how are you feeling this week? And maybe that high draft pick is enough to mount them a top wide receiver in the draft, somebody that they can replace T. Higgins with. In a way, it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe they use this time to build up some of their younger defensive players. Maybe they can go out and, again, with some of those higher draft picks in the later rounds, go out and get another pass rusher, go out and get another corner. But Joe Burrow was injured at the start of training camp this year, and he just really, outside of the 3 weeks stretch there where they got hot, was really never healthy throughout the whole year. Baltimore losing Mark Andrews is going to be a big problem for them. I don't think they're going to be the same going forward. Sounds like he has a chance to play this year, but it's not 100% certain. And we know Lamar Jackson's injury history. He almost got injured, it looked like, in the game Thursday night. It's something to keep an eye on. We know Baltimore can blow fourth quarter leads. We know how good they can be. The question is, can they sustain success? And then Pittsburgh and Cleveland. That was the last game Matt Canada ever called as an offensive coordinator. He was fired this morning, Tuesday morning, by the Steelers. Kenny Pickett is not good. Matt Canada is not good. Pittsburgh has a couple good running backs. They're starting to use Warren, who had the big touchdown run. Najee Harris looks like he's gotten a little bit more of a burst, as he's not getting the majority of the carries anymore. But this game is slowly just reliable on defense. I mean, there's a reason why I bet Pittsburgh almost every single week. I even like them this week against Cincinnati. I don't know if I'm going to take them just because I want to do something different. But the Steelers, as I keep saying, I know what I'm going to get from them every week, and it's almost like the Browns now. Dorian Thompson-Robinson did not play that well. He made a few key plays in the fourth quarter to just seal and wrap up the game. But otherwise, you know, that game was ugly. It was a game where 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, felt like 3rd and 12. Nobody could get a first down in the second half. But in the end, DTR made a few plays, and Dustin Hopkins was right there, and the Browns' historic defense again rises to that level. I don't know if you can ask the defense to surrender 10 or less points every single week going forward. The Browns' offense is going to have to get better. I think by virtue of their schedule, Denver is their house of horrors, but we know Denver is beatable. We know Cincinnati now is beatable. The Rams are beatable. Chicago, there are some easy W's potentially on that schedule to get Cleveland to 10 and 11 wins to get them in the playoff hunt. That win against Pittsburgh was a huge divisional win. And for Pittsburgh, we know again they have New England, and some other easy opponents on that schedule. Cincinnati twice without Burrow. They should be able to win both of those games, even though they're also handicapped at the quarterback position with Pickett. So Pittsburgh, I don't feel like is great. Cleveland has a historic defense, and yet they're both winning because their defenses keep them in the game. Las Vegas, Antonio Pierce played it tough. They just were not able to score. Aiden O'Connell struggled in that game. Dolphins, high-powered flying offense was out at 20 points, but their defense made a couple of plays. Jalen Ramsey got an interception, and Miami beat Vegas. We've said this about Miami. They're a lot like Dallas. They can beat up on the bad teams. They can't beat good teams. They're built more for warm weather, September, October. And obviously, this time of year to go down to Miami, I don't know if they can even, go up to Buffalo, if they can even go up to a Pittsburgh, a Cleveland, in snowy weather and withstand it and win those games. It's something that we're going to have to see moving forward for us to believe. But for Miami, the biggest question always has been Tua Tagovailoa's health. If he's healthy, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. We saw Tyreek Hill catch another touchdown this past weekend. If he's not, their offense looks completely different. For Vegas, they're starting to build an identity around Antonio Pierce, who's a former linebacker, defensive guy, obviously. And again, I feel like they have the pieces. Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Meyer, good luck tackle, and Colton Miller. They just need a quarterback upgrade. The answer was not Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not Aiden O'Connell. They need to get one of those top picks to go get a QB in the draft. Brandon Staley, I have no idea how he's not fired yet. Jordan Love at his first career 300-yard game. Jordan Love looked the best he's had by far since week 1 against the Bears. We already know the Bears are not a great defense. And this is just a magnetism of the Chargers season. Brandon Staley and this team, they underachieve. They have the talent. Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. Keenan Allen's had a great season. Austin Eckler's obviously a great back. Even without Mike Williams and some of their offensive pieces, they're moving the football. It's just Brandon Staley's defense can't even stop Green Bay and their lackluster offense, who even lost Aaron Jones in the second quarter. Jared Goff played the worst game in a dome that Jared Goff may have ever played. And the Lions still came back. They beat the Bears. It shows the character of the Lions. We know Dean Campbell's team will never give up. We know they are a good team. We know Chicago's going to play their heart out. I said it. Justin Fields does not want to tank. Justin Fields wants to show he can be the quarterback of the future for the Bears. Now, I don't think he's the future. I don't think Matt Eberflus is the future. But for 3.5 quarters, they had the Lions down. The Lions were down by 12 with 5 minutes left to play. And then Jared Goff and crew put together back-to-back drives impressively and won that game. And the Lions are showing to me why now they are right there with the Niners and the Eagles for the best teams in the NFC. I kept saying they were a notch below San Francisco. They are slowly creeping up to being right there with San Francisco, but I still need to see Jared Goff go on the road in a tough environment, a lot like Miami. Houston, CJ Stroud for free picks. The defense bailed him out. Arizona was looking like they were about to come back and upset Houston. But the Texans were able to hold on 21-16. Again, I best bet this game when I got it. The line was at 4.5. Houston barely covered by a point. CJ Stroud, I thought, made an incredible throw to Tank Dell for a touchdown in this game. I think he has a great ability to, bounce back after interceptions and just keep throwing the football and not be afraid to let it rip. I do like that part about Stroud. A lot of people have been ragging on me because I have not been the biggest fan of CJ Stroud. I still don't see a weak special in him. Again, to me, it shows that they only put up 21 points against a bad Arizona defense who has been a lot more competitive since Kyler Murray has been in the mix. We talked about it. I do feel like eventually Carolina is going to turn it around and win a couple games. Chicago's going to win one or two more games, you would think. Arizona with Kyler Murray is going to win a game more or two. So these teams right now that we think are going to be at the top of the draft board, picking 1, 2, 3, may not be the case. I said Will Levis is not the answer for the Titans. And Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, I said that was a bad performance against San Francisco. I know Doug Peterson. I know the Jags. They're going to bounce back. They're going to look good. It sets up a huge matchup now. Jacksonville, who was embarrassed by Houston, week 3 in their own building in Jacksonville. I actually think, I'm going to best bet it now, they will defeat Houston. They will take control of the AFC South here this Sunday after Thanksgiving. How about Tommy DeVito? I mean, the Commanders are just giving up. We know Ron Rivera is going to get fired. We're all guessing Eric Bieniemy is going to become the head coach of the Commanders next year. They're going to give Sam Howell some more time. They moved off Chase Young. They moved off Montez Sweat. They had a great defensive line. Maybe they save some of that money to go on and get a number 2 wide receiver, beyond Terry McLaurin, or maybe they use it to upgrade their offensive line or secondary. I don't know. But I mean, that was just embarrassing. Washington, who played Philadelphia tough twice this year, they go to Dallas. They're going to be angry. This is what we've seen out of Sam Howell all year long. Good Sam Howell, bad Sam Howell. We got bad Sam Howell against the Giants twice. Maybe he plays well against Dallas on Thanksgiving. Dallas pulled away from Carolina in the fourth quarter. Again, Carolina made it tough for 3 quarters. It was only 17-10. They just don't have the personnel to hang with Dallas. The Cowboys pulled away 33-10. Again, not a lot to say about this game. Thought Dallas would cover the 10.5. They did. San Francisco dominated Tampa for 3 quarters, but San Francisco could not move the ball in the fourth quarter. And if it wasn't for their defense, which they did lose Ufanga out for the year, that's a big part of their secondary. That's a big loss for them. But if it wasn't for their defense, getting interceptions, Tampa Bay should have covered the game. Though this was the exact outcome Tampa Bay wanted, because Tampa Bay should not want to win football games. They should not want to win that putrid NFC South division. Atlanta and New Orleans were both on a bye this week. It seems like that division to me is going to come down to those 2 teams. But Tampa, they need a new quarterback. I mean, they have the nice weapons. They have a pretty good defense that can play well against bad quarterbacks. But Baker Mayfield is not the future of the franchise. And so even though Tampa put up a better fight against San Francisco than I expected, and again, they should have covered, they should have got at least one of those back end touchdowns. In the end, San Francisco does pull away. They win by 13. I kept saying that Rams Seahawks line was weird. It was why I was not going to bet it. I said I think the Rams just have Seattle's number, and Geno Smith I still don't believe in, and that's why I don't think Seattle is on San Francisco's level in their own division. The Rams can't beat the Niners, but they can beat Seattle, who dominated that whole game. And then Geno Smith, left middle of the second quarter, came back in though on the last drive and could not overcome. Rams win the game 17-16. I think Seattle is a good playoff team in a weaker NFC. In the AFC, I don't even think they are a playoff team. They have a good weapons. They're getting better on defense. But Geno Smith, to me, is the problem. He's not converting at a regular rate for Seattle. And they need to find a new franchise quarterback. But I think they're going to be just good enough to get 9-10 wins and maybe not be in that quarterback race unless Michael Penix, who obviously suffered that bad injury, the good Washington quarterback, falls to them in the draft. The Rams are looking for a quarterback too because Matthew Stafford is not the future. could be interesting coming down the stretch here for both the Seahawks and the Rams. The Jets bench Zach Wilson. I mean, what do you want me to say about the Jets? They're gonna get running by Miami. It's gonna be one of my best bets of the weekend, depending on the line. I haven't worked on the line yet, but I can already feel it. They're starting Tim Boyle. Zach Wilson was a fun story for 2 weeks. Zach Wilson is not the answer for the Jets. They know it. Aaron Rodgers should not come back this year because the offensive line is bad. The story here was Joe Brady and the Buffalo Bills. A lot more condensed passing, a lot more short passing, a lot less of every play is a 50-yard deep shot, more reliant on the run game. We'll see how that translates as Buffalo goes to Philadelphia this coming weekend for a big game against one of the best run defenses in the NFL in the Eagles. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. They found a way to win. Now, their offense is not very good. Yes, Russell Wilson's playing better, but the only reason why they're winning, I should say, is because they are not turning the football over and they are forcing a boatload of turnovers. Yet they are unable to capitalize on them, which is why, to me, it makes the Cleveland game, and the Browns haven't won in Denver forever. Denver is the Browns' house of horrors, as I said a little bit earlier on today's show. It makes this very interesting because Denver forces a lot of turnovers, Cleveland forces a lot of turnovers. You have Russell Wilson who's playing well, and the question is going to be which team can commit the least amount of mistakes. I don't think Denver is a playoff team because I don't think their offense is as explosive. I don't think that they can put up that many points to hang with the likes of Kansas City, who does struggle offensively. They don't score in the second half. Uh, but I think that Denver's a fun story. We said Denver was going to win 7 to 8 games. They were going to look better than they did last year. And Vance Joseph to that 70 burger against Miami has turned that defense around. For Minnesota, Josh Dobbs can play well. Justin Jefferson coming back. We assume the Monday night game against Chicago will help that offense, but I think they've taken advantage of weak teams and weak schedules. They will probably get in as a wild card in the NFC just because, again, Seattle and Dallas and Minnesota look to be those teams that will get in. We know the Giants aren't getting in. We know Washington ain't getting in. We know the Rams aren't getting in. We know Arizona isn't getting in. We know Chicago and Green Bay isn't getting in, and we know the loser of the South isn't getting in. So by default, it looks like it's going to be the Vikings. Josh Dobbs, really smart kid, good story, but they're not a great team. They're playing better because they're not turning the football over. But again, them too are not as explosive. And then you have Philadelphia taking on Kansas City. Now, the Eagles pitched a second half shutout against the Chiefs. They won that game 21-17. They adjusted in the second half. What I was most shocked about this game from a Philadelphia Eagles perspective is, Chris Jones easily took over that game in the first half. The Eagles are the best offensive line in football, and Chris Jones was working it in the first half. But they made the adjustments. They ran a lot of screens to DeAndre Swift, got the ball to Jalen Hurts' hands, and then the big throw, obviously, to Devontae Smith down the sideline. Did Patrick Mahomes miss a few throws in the second half? Yes. Could that ball to MVS should have hit him in the hand? Should it have been a touchdown Kansas City? Yes. But in the end, this is the Chiefs' story of the year. They score all their points in the first half. They drop a lot of passes. Kelsey even dropped a couple of balls last night in the second half. And when they do not have anybody else outside of Kelsey that can separate from man coverage, it's making them very easy to defend. They are very, more so than ever, Patrick Mahomes reliant. It's like the Golden State Warriors being Steph Curry reliant. Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes reliant. They can only win one way, and that is Mahomes being spectacular. The Eagles have shown now in multiple games. A.J. Brown can go for 150 yards. A.J. Brown can catch one ball for 8 yards. They can run the ball for 300 yards. They can throw the ball for 300 yards. They can beat you up in many different ways. And even though they can struggle in a quarter or a half, they're not dominating the second quarter like they did last year. They are learning how to win in a multitude of ways, which will help this team in the long run. And even though they have a gauntlet of a schedule, with the best offensive line in football, with the best defensive line in football, with Jalen Hurts under center, the Eagles are going to have a chance to win every single game. They are the most complete team in the NFL, and that is clear through 11 weeks of the season. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.